Hi, I'm Dr. Rahman, and welcome to Black Women's Health. Today we get a glimpse into the world of the elite sport of rowing. More importantly, we get to meet a Black woman who has created the first rowing club for African Americans in this country. Take a listen. You ask, what is her name?
Brannon Johnson.
Which is very interesting. Is there a story behind your first name?
Uh, it was my father named me,
Yes.
and my first name and middle name is Brandon LeRae. But I think from my grandpa's travels and my dad's reading, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow. I mean, it's an unusual name for a female,
It is.
which is kind of special.
Yes, I'd like to believe I've grown into it. I was not a fan of it in the early formative years.
No, it's the kind of name that you can't tell the sex.
Well, most people think I'm a white man from Ireland. So I would disagree with you slightly on that one. They are surprised when I am a 6 feet tall Black woman, but Hakuna Matata.
A Black woman rowing the Schuylkill River. Let me find out more. And so I've just been fascinated and interested in learning how this all started for you.
Yeah, I mean, I started in middle school, really. Great parents who, are raising children in a inner city, environment. We're from West Philly, and we had to do an instrument and a non-traditional sport. So mine was rowing. And I really have to give the credit where credit's due, which would be to my parents, because I really wasn't a fan. I had other plans for my life, and my dad still tells to this day that I didn't want to row and it wasn't cool. And
Yes.
now, I run a business, and we just opened up a studio in East Falls, so we're operating 2 locations, and yeah, it's needless to say, he was correct. I was wrong. He won the battle. And that's what parents are for, right?
Okay, so how did you get exposed to rowing?
So Mayor Street he was an avid cyclist, and he would pedal past the Schuylkill on the way to City Hall, and he would see everyone out there rowing early morning, and he didn't see any Black people, and he kind of, I would say, challenged the city to do something about that. So there was an inner city rowing camp ran out of the old Temple boathouse when it was dilapidated, and it's not the building that it is now. And I happened to be in that camp, and I learned, and then we sort of were approached by the Have Vesper Boat Club that told my dad, what the possibilities were. Title IX had passed, and a lot of colleges picked up women's rowing and women's soccer. And, being a Black kid growing up the way I did, my dad was, really kind of on the cutting edge of seeing what was possible. And my mom was also very strategic in the environments that she placed us in. So we basically, they made me join Vesper. I got a coach, and then the rest is history. I started training, started winning, got recruited to go to University of Texas on a rowing scholarship, trained for a national team, and got to really kind of travel the world and race and train and see all aspects of the sport. And I think that's why, when I came home and really started building my business and building this community that we've built, I really had all of that I had all of that knowledge and all that information basically under my hat, and I can use that to power what we now call today, which is BLJ community rowing.
Okay, so you're making this sound way too easy. All right. Let me let me back up. So you were about how old when you first got introduced to rowing?
14.
14 years old, black female, and now you're rowing. And I imagine you don't see very many other black females.
Well, I mean, I think that it's a lot. There's more than, let's say, let me say this. There's a lot. Now that I'm 40, there are quite a few more. I
Mhm.
think, it's exponentially fewer, and I think it is an elite sport, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think we're absolutely a solution, and we're standing in the gap, and we are doing the work to bring access to this sport. And I think, we're moving boundaries and creating opportunities and fostering connection, and all of those things are really what has made us the community that we are. We're working with Girard College, which is a predominantly Black boarding school, and they're minutes from the Schuylkill, and we're building a rowing team there, and just watching, these kids kind of get on the river and figure it out, and really start to understand how to make these boats work, and now we're starting to get into how do we get better, how do we get faster, to partnering with like an organization like Girl Track, and letting them experience it for the first time, even though they've grown up here, and Philadelphia is a rowing mecca, and they never got to even
Mhm.
try.
Mhm.
And that we're a solution for that, and I'm incredibly proud of that.
You called rowing an elite sport. Why is that?
So I think, we have these spaces and these areas and these sports that have been predominantly white for such a long time, um, from tennis, which is the Williams sisters kind of turned that sort of on its head, to polo, to, fencing, to, there's a whole host of areas that have been historically dominated by, non dominated by people that don't look like us. And I think, rowing was just, it's outside, it's on the water, you have to be able to swim, you row in the rain. The rain is like the perfect time to row. That paired with, it's such an expensive sport. The boats are expensive, the oars are expensive, the equipment
Mm,
costs,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
Paired with, there's no bus or train that runs to the Schuylkill. Paired with, so I think it's the system is designed to do what it's doing. And I think that if you look at all of the hurdles that you have to circumvent just to get on the water, it's different when you look like us. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about coaching, and, you know, talking to youth the sport and what it can do, because I
mhm.
think, when you have better options, you can make better choices, right? Life is a series of choices. And if rowing is an option, you can make better choices. Rowing was an option for me. So I got to travel the world, and I got to do things differently. And I also was able to learn how to navigate in a very, very different way than a traditional Black girl from 41st and Girard, So I think so much is given, much is expected. And I think it's absolutely my duty to try to pass that on and give that opportunity to as many people as possible. I also think about just the wellness and the health around it. Rowing is the best full body workout that you'll get outside of swimming, and there's no impact because you're on the water.
Mhm.
And Black women, Black men, Black people, our health is important, and working out is important, and staying fit with low impact on those knees and joints. And our oldest member is 87. She still gets in a boat. The hardest thing for her is getting in and out, but she can row. And I think you can do this later in life. And we need to educate and open up, all of our as at the sport as much as possible because it can benefit so many people.
Okay, I'm going to circle back to your work, but just a little bit more about you.
Mm.
You started rowing. Did you know you were good?
Oh no, no. We came into the sport really quite blind.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I think, at 14, you're just a kid. As I grew, sort of matriculated through high school, I think you don't really get this. I don't think the sport gives you that aha, I'm good moment. There's always something to work on. As soon as you win a race, there's always that, and you immediately start to prepare about the next race. And I had excellent coaches, and you cross the finish line, get that medal, and then you immediately start thinking about that next race. And I think, we started to understand we were different whenever colleges started knocking, and, the Inquirer starts coming around wanting interviews. But I
Mm,
think, my parents did a very good job of keeping me very humble and very plugged in. And it was about the process of excellence, not about being good.
okay. Okay. And did I hear you say you were able to get a college scholarship as a result of rowing?
Yes, I went to University of Texas on a full ride.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
And then you went on, you said you traveled the world. Where exactly did you go?
Wow. I mean, rowing has taken me where? South Africa, London, Lucerne, Switzerland. Um, yeah, Chicago. I mean, it's taken Paris, Turkey. We just got back from Turkey. We rode there. Rowing's really taken me all over the world, and I think
And are you still a professional rower at
no,
this?
now we actually took up. We just I my some of my clients. We did a trip to Turkey and we rode.
Okay.
But traveling and training is important because you have to go. You have to when you're training for races. You have to travel to settle in. I actually got a 3-month tour to go to Lucerne and train there with a great coach. And I
Wow.
think it just opens up your perspective. It opens up
Sure. And
how you live, and it informs so much of who you are. And I think it is important that we don't grow up, but we get out of just Philadelphia. You get out of the country
right, you
to
see the
see.
world.
Yes. And I
And
think you bring these gems back with you, and I think they help you shape your life the way you want it.
so when I think of rowing, when I think of the Schuylkill, and when I think of the regattas that I've seen, I picture one person boats. Are they called boats? Is that the right term?
Rowing shells.
Yes. One person, two person, and then a team. Were you involved as a team or as an individual in this rowing? You're a
Both.
sculptor.
You have to do both, really. I mean, I think when you get to college, you're basically sweeping. So there's two types of rowing: sculling and sweeping. Sweeping is one oar, which when you see those long eight, whether you see
Mm-hmm,
8 people in a boat with a coxswain, and then
mm-hmm.
sculling is people with 2 oars. I started out as a single sculler, but in order to make it onto your national team or get recruited by any college, you have to sweep. That's just the way it is, and especially if you want to get to a good college. And then you kind of switch back and forth. I did a lot of sculling. I love my racing single, but it's just because that's where I started.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't really lock into your boat. You basically go where you're going to get good training. You're going to go where the opportunities are. You're going to go where where you coaches are. So I think that's it. You definitely jump back and forth.
Okay. And when I picture scullers, I they have to have lots of strength in their lower extremities and their arms. which implies you have to have a lot of core strength also.
Yes, it's definitely quads. You definitely want really strong quads, long, strong core, arms and back. I mean, it is a full body workout, which is one of the reasons why I really love it. It really works out your full body, and you don't. And it's also like quite beautiful. It's almost balletic in posture and movement.
Yeah, it's a
So right.
very elegant to watch. And I imagine there has to be strategy when you're in these races involved. I mean, it can't all just be physical strength and endurance.
I mean, everyone has a race plan. So yeah, there's always a race plan. We're gonna take it up, sprint out of the blocks, and take it down, settle hard, and sprint back at the last 500. There's always a race plan, but a lot of it is strength, stamina, mental toughness. How much can you push yourself? How much can your body take? How good are you at mind over matter? Like if you do take a bad stroke, or if you do catch a crab, or something goes awry, how fast can you get it back? I mean, the 2,000-meter race or a 6,000-meter race, I would say mental focus is the absolute most important thing.
And how do you train? Are there specific exercises that you do or focus on?
Um, Yes. I mean, you're constantly on the water. I mean, meters, miles, it's all important. Ergometers, training on a rowing machine is vital. Weight training. I mean, you really are training all the time. And all of that builds up your body's ability to withstand what you're going to ask it to do on race day. But
Hmm.
I mean, I think that's why it is such an interesting sport, because you really train like a Viking. Like you're always, always, always training. And I mean, you train months and months for 7 minutes for a 7-minute race. But
And when you say training, do you mean you're on the water, or are you in a gym lifting weights, or are you practicing yoga? What does training look like?
all of it, you're doing all of
Really?
those things.
Okay.
Literally, yeah. I mean, you're getting on the water. If I'm training hard, you're getting on the water twice a day. You're in the gym. You're also trying to stretch because your muscles start to lactate out. I mean, you're erging because you constantly have to be testing the 2,000 meters, because you rank yourselves with your fellow athletes to see who's the fastest 2K. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's just constant.
Okay. Last question about you before we get to the business. You said rowing in the rain was the best experience.
No, it's just when the water is absolute glass. So the surface of the water is flat when it rains.
Mm,
So, for a black woman, that's a problem, because we're always worried about our hair.
absolutely.
So it's another sort of, I would say, hurdle to circumvent.
Speaking of that, hair, water, black women, one of the requirements is you have to know how to swim,
Yeah,
correct?
correct.
Which is a big hurdle for a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you see that changing, or have you noticed a difference in the number of black women coming or interested in the sport?
Absolutely. I think, which is one of the reasons why we partner with Diversity in Aquatics. I think they really have their thumb on the pulse print of, this drowning prevention and water competency and education around Black and Brown people specifically. And I think, you know, um, water safety saves lives,
Mhm,
and I
mhm.
think it's absolutely important. I think it's also we work closely with them because you have to be able to swim in order to work for me as well. So it's not just you should be able to swim so that you can row. It's I can't hire you if you can't swim. And I think, especially our younger kids that are learning to, get comfortable in the water, and what that means it's a life skill. It's not just, learn to swim so you can row. It's a life skill. And I think that's incredibly important. And I think that organizations like Diversity and Aquatics have really picked up that mantle and are really moving the ball down the court in a very specific way, and it's great to see.
So I know that you offer classes to the community, but in order to participate in your class, you have to be a swimmer, correct?
You have to be able to swim, yes.
Um, how is that defined? Meaning,
So it's self-defined. So
okay,
we're not giving swim tests. So you have to sign a waiver.
okay,
And so it also isn't, we're not making you swim across the school to prove that you can swim, which would be awful. But you do have to sign a waiver saying that you can swim before we'll allow you to get into a boat. We also our boats. There's a coach in the boat with you, so we're not really one of those organizations that just throws you out and lets you figure it out. We really have developed a specific learn to row curriculum that step by step takes you through the mechanics of the stroke, the order of events, the equipment. So your coach is constantly with you. And then if we do take you out and a coach sees a lot of fear, I think that's when we step in and try to drill down on what's causing the anxiety. Are you comfortable on the water? Is it, you know what I mean, some past issues? So it's a lot more hands-on and a lot more intimate than people would think just by glancing at our website or just looking at our operations.
So if I'm hearing you, it's not just one class, it's a series of classes that someone takes. Is that correct?
Correct. Now, our clinics are huge. They're super, super fun. We'll have our last girl truck clinic, we had like 60 people show up. We put 40 people out on the water. But those are just a tasting. And you're out there. The coach to student ratio is extremely, extremely high. We don't take any risks there. We could row you around and you wouldn't even get an oar in if it came down to it. But that's because that's a more education. That's just an educational experience, I like to say. Like, come down to the river, learn what we're about, understand that this is something that is available to you. And then from there, if you would like to take a class, it is a series. It's a series of classes.
I see. I see. So let me back up just a little. You went to college, you traveled the world, and then you came back home. And what was the impetus for you to establish this rowing club?
Honestly, I really kind of stumbled into it. I was back home and I was still dabbling. I was still training. I was ready to retire. I was very burnt out. But I started teaching learn to row classes on the side for just some extra cash. And I specifically was recruiting people that looked like me. And I think that is how we sort of started to see that we had something special. My learn to row classes, I started at Maryland Neighbor Learning Tree. Then we grew to Chester County Night School. Then we grew to Mainline Night School. And then people started taking my classes and then coming back and taking it again. Then we had to develop an intermediate class because we had so many people that were coming back and wanting to do the next level. And then people were asking me if I coached on the side. I wasn't at the time, so I started doing that. And I think it kind of organically grew. And then we had to incorporate, then we had to get the LLC and we had to get insurance because we had people that were out. So our business grew organically from figuring out a need and providing a solution.
Sounds like there was a huge interest.
Exactly, because in Philadelphia, there's nowhere in Philadelphia on the school code where you can walk in, sign a waiver, pay money, and get on the water with zero experience. It's not possible anywhere except with us.
Yeah, and as a resident of Philadelphia, you've had to seen the regatta at some point in your life and wonder what the perspective must be like when you're on the Schuylkill River looking at the city.
It's spectacular.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine.
It really is.
All
Yeah.
right, so now you find yourself with a business, and it turns out that this is the first Black owned rowing school company in the country.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think
Huge,
I think
huge.
it's
Kudos to you.
thank
Kudos to
you.
you.
Thank you very much. I think there are, and it's an organization. I think what's interesting is we're a business. We're a Black owned rowing business, and we're still the only really Black owned rowing business. There are other organizations, like I work very closely with Craig White, who coaches Brick City Rowing, which is an organization in New Jersey. He's doing really wonderful things. And our Shay Cooper's a great friend. And I think we've built this sort of catalog of Blackness in the sport of rowing. But I mean, we still are really the only business, as in we are operating as a business. We're teaching entrepreneurship to our youth. And our coaches are Black. They graduate, they're in college, they come home, they work. How
Mm-hmm.
we're growing, I think that the business trend and the business end is a very specific thing that is special to us. um and I think there's so many lessons there. I find so many similarities between an entrepreneur and an athlete.
Mm. Can you share some?
The work ethic, that indomitable ability to get things done, being able to pivot and be flexible. Things go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Mental toughness,
Mm-hmm.
uh, unwavering discipline,
Mm-hmm.
and training. I mean, I still train in my single. I still get out in a single because I can't teach where I won't go. And you can't leave where you know what I mean? And I can't teach what I don't know, and I can't leave where I won't go. So I still have to train my body so that I can train my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think entrepreneurs and athletes, I think you see, especially now that we're in this like social media um, age, I see so many athletes, I see so many entrepreneurs and athletes, friendships, and I see why they're so close, because the way of life. And super early mornings, late nights, and even when you don't feel like it, and even when you don't want to, and understanding you're at the end of your feelings is nothing. You have to do it even when you don't feel like it anymore. And I think you have to hang out with people who are going to push you, because iron sharpens iron. So I see so many similarities between entrepreneurs and athletes.
And would this be the reason you would encourage parents to have their daughters participate?
Absolutely. I think I was talking to a friend of mine who also has a very strong father. I see a lot of I think girls with strong dads are just run at life in a very different way. And I think that athletics gives that to girls as well. It can't be a substitute, but it can be a stand-in. And I think parents that want to raise girls that have that sort of rugged sense of somebodiness and really can go out in the world and extract what they need, because the world isn't set up for them necessarily. I think this sport is great for that.
And it's interesting because it's at a time in a girl's life when she's feeling pressures about how she looks, about her sexuality. All of those things really kind of hit home right around age 14, puberty, all of that. And this is taking her away from all of that. I mean, to focus on your body, but focus on your body in a different kind of way. It's about strength and endurance and fortitude. And that's not the type of things that are typically presented to 14-year-old girls in terms of this is what you should aspire to.
Exactly, as well as giving you something to focus on. I think you know there's such an interesting team dynamic. There's also that coach dynamic. There's hearing be constructive criticism and being able to understand that, and you don't know it all and you do need coaching, and um, can you listen to what someone says and extract the gems and apply it, and are you coachable, right? I think all of these are just great lessons for girls to learn.
Well, I have to ask, did you find or experience what you would call racism in your rowing career?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think racism is like gravity.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I daily, all the time, still do really, and I think it absolutely colors how I coach, because I think one of the great things about coaching now is now I have these kids coming up, and I also coach adults, and it's so lovely to be validated now that I am, I've got such amazing Black people who are clients who are like, oh my gosh, yes, no, you're not crazy. Yes, this
mhm,
is happening, or share
mhm.
their own stories and from their own walks of lives, because they're all high functioning, very successful people, to kids that are, this happened, and it's like, yeah, we call that Tuesday. And you don't get to give up, and you don't get to, poor you. This is who we are. This is how we are. And our ancestors fought so that we could be here, so that you can continue to fight. And I think that that's absolutely one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about coaching kids that look like me.
Sure. Now, you've mentioned your dad a couple times. Apparently, he was instrumental in what you're choosing the sport or you staying in the sport, or how did your dad actually come into play with all of this with you?
Well, it's actually both my parents, and I think my dad. And let's just be clear, the sport was chosen for me because I did not choose it, and you can tell him I said that. No, I would say I think that my dad is an entrepreneur, so I grew up with this Black male father who put us all through school, and basically did it all out of his business. So I had a very intimate understanding of how much work it was. I mean, the man worked all the time, still does. And then my mom is very much a lead from behind the scenes and a people person. She understands people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that those two characteristics are very instrumental in how I lead.
And how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I'm one of five.
Oh, okay. And everyone had to have a sport.
Everyone had to have a sport, or everyone had to have physical activity, and everyone had to have an instrument. Yes. Those were non-negotiables.
Okay. All right. So we're starting to run out of time. I'd
Okay.
like for you to talk about your classes. Do people row in the winter?
So we just opened up our indoor studio, which I'm very excited about. It's an erging studio. In an erging studio, an ergometer is a rowing machine built by Concept 2. And then the lovely thing that we outfitted in the space is I wanted to be able to do multiple things. So we also have boxing classes, we also have yoga,
Mm.
We installed a bar, so we're doing some bar classes, and then we also outfitted it so it's a very attractive space. So we also allow you to rent it to have baby showers and small, birthday parties and that sort of thing.
And this is
Our
right on the Schuylkill River?
No, this is on Ridge Avenue. So we're at Ridge
Oh,
and Midvale in East Falls.
okay.
Our river location is 2200 Kelly Drive, and that's where we run that's where we're a boathouse without walls. So you'll see a blue and white tent and boats outside. That's us.
Hmm.
And we run learn to row classes. We run our master's practices. We run our youth program. We run all of our learn to row clinics. Everything's out of there. Our water season is April through October, the end of October. And then our winter season indoors is November through March.
Okay. So if I were interested in rowing, I would be taking classes um, during the winter, and then in April, I would be able to get out onto the water.
Right. So, and what you want to do is you don't have to wait until the proper season. Just reach out, and then we will let you know what our onboarding process is because it changes depending on the season, but it doesn't mean that you can't get started.
All right. So if someone wanted to find you, how would they do that?
So our website is BLJ Community Rowing. And then our social media handles are also BLJ Community. We are on Instagram and Facebook. Our cell phone number, the business number is 845-282-3463. You can DM us, you can text us, you can call us. You can go on the website and drop an inquiry that feeds straight into our email. You can pop by the studio at 4229 Ridge Avenue, or you can pop by the river at 2200 Kelly Drive and just say, hey, I'm interested. Someone
Hmm.
there will get you all the information that you need.
All right. So I know that you have to be able to swim. Any other requirements? Can you be too young or too old to
Our
do?
age range is 8 to 80.
Wow. Okay. So there's no weight limitation.
So I really wouldn't say there is, because even if you're nervous, again, we were talking about with the swimming, with the anxiety around the weight limit, come and get started, because what we can do is say, hey, let's do conversation only, or let's come up with a plan that you're comfortable with, that's going to help you deliver on your objectives, as well as start to teach you the rowing trick without you even having to get on the water. So that's a
Hmm.
lovely thing about having a studio, is we can
Hmm.
build these multifaceted programs now and really individualize it for the client. So I say, don't wait and don't think that you can't do it. Come and we will work together and get you out on the water. So our
Yes.
mission is to create access to the elite sport of rowing by removing boundaries, creating opportunities, and really reinforcing community. And I think that we do that intergenerationally. And I think that's one of the reasons why our community is so strong.
And so I got excited because if you know Philadelphia, then you know East and West River Drive and the Schuylkill River. I could only imagine